It is still quite early at the moment, all the lights in the studio are still off, except for this one. This is my UNS 30C, which is home to my alien BETTA. I've had this guy for a few years now, he's doing really good, but his tank is a bit of a mess. I escaped this tank in November last year when I was still in the old studio, so it's about time for a rescape. That's what we're doing today. Let's get started. So the plan is to do a full rescape, a completely new layout, but I want to make sure that I have Mr. Alien back in his tank by the end of the day. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how we do a full rescape without having the need to cycle the tank again. First job is to catch Mr. Alien, so I have a little container. I'm going to fill this up with some tank water, catch him, place him in here, and then he can just chill in here for a couple of hours while we rescape his tank. So with Mr. Alien safely out of the way, we can now strip the tank, take everything out, give it a good clean and prepare it for the new layout. Here we go, tank is all clean and ready for a new layout. So just a quick recap of everything that I did. I first caught Mr. Alien, put him aside. After that I removed all the hardscape and all the plants. Then I drained as much water as possible, moved the tank to the stable, and then I caught all the shrimp that was still in there. After that I removed the old substrate, just cleaned the tank, and now we're here. Now the equipment from the tank is still over here, so we have a light, we have a heater and a filter. I'm currently running the filter on this BETTA tank just to make sure we keep those beneficial bacteria alive, and then we can just escape without having to rush, you know. So this guy is also still doing good. This is my second BETTA. He actually doesn't have a name, but he's still looking good. Escape is doing good, so I'm happy. Then back to our empty canvas for today. So this is a UNS 30C, 30 centimeters all around, holds roughly 7 US gallons or 30 liters. It's used, it has a couple of scratches, but overall still looks pretty good. Really nice size, perfect for beginners as well. For the light, I'm currently using the Danla Nano light. I don't remember the name actually, but once we move the tank back to the shelf, I'll reinstall the Skylight Hyper bar. So the plan for today is to make a really simple but still impactful and colorful layout. I've already selected some wood and some rocks, and I'm gonna go for an island style composition. So the hardscape will be mostly in the center, and then the sides and the front will be open. I'm gonna have some colorful stem plants in the background. Should look very nice. Let's get started with the substrate system. While I was breaking down the old layout in this tank, I actually saved some of the substrate as well. That's what I have in this trash bag over here. So this stuff is still full of beneficial bacteria. So the old substrate in combination with the filter that is still up and running should be enough to instantly cycle this new layout. And then we can immediately add the BETTA back in, add the cherry shrimp back in, and there shouldn't be any issues. So just a little bit of the old substrate, and now we can continue building up the substrate like we normally do. So I'm going to start with the 88 additives, the BACTER 100, TOURMALINE BC and Clear Super, and then after that I'll cap everything with a fresh layer of AQUASOIL, and I'm thinking of using some cosmetic sand as well. Okay, for now we're done with the substrate. I'm going to add in the cosmetic sand later, probably once we're done planting. So we can now move on to the hardscape. As I mentioned, I've already been kind of playing around with some hardscape off camera, and I'm going to be reusing old hardscape. So I have some Yamaya stones and I have some black spiderwood. Now the cool thing about reusing old hardscape is that there quite often is like dried up moss attached to the wood. In this case I have quite a bit of it. I think it's mostly phycillins. Now it's completely dry, but actually once we submerge this wood again, the moss will start growing again. So in a few weeks we'll have a little bit of moss just kind of popping up everywhere. This always looks really cool. So I have, I think, 4 pieces of wood and 5 stones. So let's see if we can make something nice with this hardscape. Okay, I think that's the hardscape done. So I've used 5 rocks, 4 pieces of wood. I think it looks nice. I'm quite happy with it. Loads of detail in the foreground, and then the background is nice and empty for all kinds of plants. So next step is to glue everything together, just to make sure that the pieces of wood are not going to float. And as always, I'm using cotton pads and liquid super glue. Here we go, 5 minutes later and everything is glued together. I absolutely love this method. Everything is rock solid. So if there's anybody watching that doesn't know this trick, a liquid type super glue in combination with cotton pads is a really good method to combine hardscape together or glue hardscape together. And if you want to glue plants to hardscape, I would always recommend to use the gel type super glue. Just make sure it's cyanoacrylate based, and then it's completely safe for fish, shrimp and other inhabitants. So hardscape done, so we can now move on to planting. And of course, as always, we have beautiful plants from Dental Plants. We have the new Rotella Blood Red, which is a very easy red stem plant. Some Blixa japonica, a couple other stem plants. I have some really nice Bucephalandra Red Scorpio, I think it's called. Yeah. I have some leftovers as well. So I have some moss, I have some Hydrocatyl verticillata, which I don't use very often. So I think we have a nice mix over here. So the foreground is going to remain empty, so we're going to immediately move to the midground and do all the epiphytes. So first up we have this beautiful Boost Red Scorpio. So I had 2 pots, I kept one just whole, which I've just planted, and now I'm planting the second pot, which I've split up into 2 portions. So I want to try to avoid using glue, so I'm just going to try to wedge them in the gaps between the wood and the rocks, just like so. And then from another tank I've removed a little bit of this really cute Anubias mini coin. So the Boost Scorpio is like reddish brownish, and then the Anubias is vibrant green, so we have some nice contrast. And then for the moss I have quite a lot of this so-called Bucephalandra moss, which is really slow growing, which will be perfect for maintenance, keeping it low maintenance. So I'm just gonna like tear this up into smaller portions and then also wedge it in between the cracks. That's looking pretty good already. Very natural, very aged look in my opinion. Love the combination of the Boost and the mini coin and the moss. So now let's plant the rest of the plants. I think right here behind the rocks is a good spot for the Hydrocatyl verticillata. Yeah, let's just like to do the same thing on the other side as well. I don't mind a little symmetry in aquascaping. Then behind that we can do the Blixa. This is definitely one of my favorites. But it does always look a little bit weird when it's coming from the in vitro cup, But if you take your time, you clean it up properly, you have a lot of portions in just one pot. And then we're just left with this little area here behind the wood. Here I'm going to try to plant 4 different stem plants. Let's see how that's going to work. So first up we have mermaid weed. This one is going to go directly in the center. Then between the Blixa and the mermaid weed, I'm going to plant some Ludwigia arcuata. And on the other side between the Blixa and the mermaid weed, I'm going to plant the Rotella Blood Red. So this one is really going to be popping really crazy red purplish color. I've changed things up a little bit because I still had one more stem plant. So I've moved the Blixa and the verticillata a little bit more towards the front, opening up a little gap there just in the corner. And there we're going to plant the, what's it called again? The Diplis deandra is going to go there. It's going to be a greenish orangey stem plant as well. Now this one is the most difficult stem plant that I have in here, so it might not even survive. But yeah, all these stem plants is going to help to, get this aquarium back to being balanced again faster. Help soak up all those extra nutrients from the new soil. I didn't use that much soil, so I'm not too worried about an ammonia spike or anything. Okay, planting is done. So the only thing left to do in terms of the layout is to add in the sand. I'm thinking to move the tank back to the shelf, fill up with water so the soil can settle completely, and then add in the sand. I'll probably siphon out these little grains of aquasol that are in the front right now, siphon them out, then add in a fresh layer of clean sand, and then hopefully the sand and the soil is also not going to start mixing, because I absolutely hate how that looks. So let's move the tank back to the shelf. Okay, time for a little update. The tank has been moved to the shelf. I filled up with water, installed all the equipment, including the heater. Now the heater is a bit of an eyesore at the moment. It's like dead in the center. It's really big, of course. At some point it will get covered up by the stem plants, but I'm thinking of removing the heater because it's currently summer. It's quite warm in here already. Don't think I need one. I've also added some floating plants. I've added in the sand, and I think that's it for now. I'm still waiting for the heater to warm up the water because it is quite cold. So once it's up to temperature, we can add in the fish. One thing is just an extra step. I have some cecum stability, so some new fresh beneficial bacteria. I'm gonna add a little bit of that in as well. And then yeah, I'll wait a few more hours and then we can add in the BETTA and those cherry shrimp. 5 weeks have passed since we rescaped this tank, and I am very happy with how it is looking at the moment. As always, I like to talk you guys through what has happened since day one, because the first few weeks of a new setup are always challenging. I like to keep it real and show you guys the good and the bad. Let's get the bad things out of the way first. So I was very excited about all the different background plants and seeing them develop into a beautiful bouquet with all kinds of colors and textures. Unfortunately, on day 10, I noticed that a lot of them had started melting. I have no idea why this happened, so I decided to just move on and replant the entire background. I had a few pots of rotala left over from a different project, so instead of ordering the same plants again and spending more money, I just used what I had available. So the background turned out a little bit different, but still looks pretty good. I also added one more plant, and that is this beautiful Nymphea gardneriana. It seems to be doing really well in here, and it actually sent out a little runner to the foreground. There is one more piece of bad news that I have to share with you guys, but don't worry, it has a good ending. On day 3, Mr. Alien jumped out. Luckily I was in the studio at that time, so I managed to get him back in his tank quite quickly. But why did he jump? I checked the water parameters and they were all fine. There was no nitrate and no ammonia. So my best guess is he jumped because he got a bit too excited about his neighbor. Normally I always have a piece of paper between both BETTA tanks so they can't see each other. But sometimes I remove it for a short time because a little bit of flaring keeps their fins nice and healthy. So I think he tried to jump to the other tank, but of course that didn't work. Luckily he recovered quite quickly, so the story has a good ending. Besides that, there's only good news. All the plants are healthy and I've had little to no issues with algae. So we talked a little bit about the equipment at the beginning of the video, but let's go over the full setup and how I'm running this tank at the moment. Starting on top with the light, this is the Skylight Hyperbar FXS. Basically the same light as the Shallow River, just a smaller version of it. The light is on from 1 PM until 9 PM with 30 minutes ramp up and 30 minutes ramp down, so 7 hours on full power. Then for the filter, I have a mini canister filter from a brand called True. If you're interested in these, I will leave a link in the video description. Of course, I'm also using CO2 and I've recently upgraded the CO2 system. I now have a single regulator from CO2 Art that is powering all 4 tanks on the shelf, plus the 60U that's on the left. I do have a discount code for the CO2 Art website, which will give you 10% off. So that's basically all the equipment. Then in terms of maintenance, I'm just doing a 50% water change once a week, trimming the plants once a month or so, and adding liquid fertilizer whenever I remember, usually 3 to 4 times per week. For the fertilizer, I'm using APT0, and again, link plus discount code in the video description. I think that's all there is to say, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.